Before we get into the video, I just want to say that there are times when I say the Duke, but I actually mean the Count, and Count Magnus Lee to be more exact. So that's the character I'll be really referring to when I say the Duke. And also, I forgot that there's a Vampire Hunter D reference in Elden Ring, which should be up on the screen now, about Vampire Hunter D and his twin brother. So just want to throw that in. Hey guys, welcome back to the Intergalactic Outlaw. I know it's been a minute since I've uploaded on the channel. I've just been into some life things, but I do plan to post more regularly, starting with this video about Vampire Hunter D. So now that I've said what the video is going to be about, let's get into it. Now, if anyone doesn't know what Vampire Hunter D is about, here's a quick explanation. Vampire Hunter D is a futuristic vampire film and novel, and I believe manga. There are only two films that we got, and they were about 20 years apart from each other. I discovered this from Yoshitaka Amano's art, which some of you may know from Final Fantasy. But these two films, they don't go too in depth with Dee's background, and they don't go too in depth about Dee's power, although we do see some variation of his power, and we see some things that he can do, and we see a lot of his character come through as being very stoic, very silent. But in today's video, I'll be diving into some of the materials from the novels as well as predominantly the materials from the movies. Can anyone understand the pain, this loneliness? This is a quote taken from the Vampire Hunter D movie that was streamed in like the 2000s. Today, we'll talk about Vampire Hunter D and the character of D, who's the main character of the show. He's a Dhampir. If you don't know what a Dhampir is, that basically means he's kind of similar to Blade. He's a vampire and a human being. He's often seen wandering around what's known as the frontier, constantly on the hunt for nobility, such as Camilla is what we see in the movie, and we also see him looking for the Duke in the one from the 80s. Now let's get into some of the backstory about D. D was born as a conjoined twin with his brother, who was also referred to as quote-unquote fake D, but he has all the powers of D. He just has a completely different personality, meaning he's cruel, he's hateful towards humans, and he exercises his power in a more aggressive way. D and his brother Fake D were born in a lab by the sacred ancestor, and in the old movie from the 80s, they mentioned that D might be a descendant from the sacred ancestor, and of course you can assume that this ancestor is Dracula. We never really know very much about Dee's background or his mother, or even what village or where he came from exactly. I think that the idea is that he came from Transylvania, which further goes along him being a descendant of Dracula. His brother, on the other hand, would become his enemy, and we still don't know very much about his brother in terms of a backstory. But what we do know is that due to his brother's different personality from D, both of them would become enemies, and they wouldn't really have that kind of affection for each other, that brotherly love. In fact, D isn't really shown having affection to any kind of creature, because there are more than just humans and vampires in this world. You see werewolves, fairies, kind of like wizards. In the movie in the 2000s, there's a whole village that they go to, and it's just filled to the brim with different shapeshifters. So there are all kinds of creatures, but D isn't really shown as being particularly affectionate to anyone or anything, rather. And it can be assumed based on the film of the movie that he's at least 5,000 years old, because this movie takes place way, way far in the future. I'm talking about in the year 5,000 something. Now, let's get into the interesting stuff, and that's D's abilities. And D has a lot of abilities. Vampire Hunter D, he isn't shown in the films to his fullest extent, and you'll know what that means better when I kind of describe what he can do. Being an old vampire and being a vampire, he has the typical abilities of regeneration, the weakness to things such as sunlight or being burned and fire, but he also has been shown to be able to regenerate to the point where he can almost regenerate his entire body, which is very interesting. There is a part in the movie in which his hand is separated from his body and he's almost completely obliterated. Yet he regenerates together without his hand, but he also has the ability to regenerate together with his hand. And that goes into another ability that he has, which is his left hand. Now, if you've never seen Vampire Hunter D, you might be wondering, why am I talking about his hand so much? What's so special about his hand? But his hand is probably like his best friend and the only thing that is constant with him on his journey, and it also talks to him. So it's not just an ordinary hand. This hand has the power to absorb natural elements such as fire, lightning, water, and air. It also has the power to absorb things such as blood to help D heal. This left hand of D's is so powerful, and you can see this even more in the novel, where he's been shown to absorb things like particle cannons, nuclear explosions, and he's also been shown to absorb lightning strikes. So his left hand is extremely powerful, and he's an extremely powerful character who has even been shown to absorb attacks from elder gods. You think creatures that are inspired by creatures like Cthulhu, and D's hand has been able to absorb attacks from those types of beings. Another asset of D is his combat skills. Of course, because he's thousands of years old, he has expertise, and obviously he has things like super speed, super strength, but perhaps one of his most valuable skills are his swordship and his swordsman abilities that he has, and his agility as well as one of his great abilities. And when you combine his swordplay with his agility, he becomes a formidable force. And this is how he dispels of most of his enemies. And he even has abilities that are super whacked out, like infinite swords and just crazy abilities that unfortunately we never got to see in the show, or in the movie I should say, excuse me, not the show. In conclusion, I would like to say D is a similar character to people like Guts, Spawn, or Musashi from Vagabond. He's that quintessential Sennin, stoic, very masculine, brooding figure who at times can be confused for the bad guy, but is the good guy. I mean, I didn't go into a lot of detail because there's a lot of information about this guy in novels, but I will get into that right there. As I've been referencing the movies a bit, but a lot of parts I've also been referencing the novels, the tragic part of Vampire Hunter D is that we've never gotten some of these novels brought to an anime, or even more than 2 movies that weren't 20 years apart, because both of these movies are 20 years apart. And had it not been for Yoshitaka Amano and his art with Final Fantasy, personally, I would have never even heard of Vampire Hunter D. So it's a real shame that we have never gotten an anime about this guy or anything about him. But I will say, if you're a fan of Hellsing, if you're a fan of Trigon, if you're a fan of characters like that, and you're a fan of anime like that, then check out the 2 Vampire Hunter D movies. They're both available somewhere, and they're 20 years apart, but the animation is timeless. The 80s animation has that hand-drawn, majestic style, and the 2000s animation is kind of similar to the Animatrix in a lot of ways, or something like Aeon Flux to a degree, but taken up a few notches, and I definitely recommend it. But hey, that's been the video. If you guys want Vampire Hunter D, I don't know, maybe we can raise enough noise to make them make something about Vampire Hunter D. But until next time, make sure you remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.